Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome to the All or Nuffle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Blood Bowl. Greetings, Blood Bowlers, and welcome back to another episode of All or Nuffle. My name is Baz, and as you will be familiar, on this podcast we talk about all things Blood Bowl, and we've got one hell of a Blood Bowl topic for you today. Myself and the two gentlemen that are joining me all attended the Bugman's Belter at Warhammer World this past Sunday, and we had an absolutely cracking time. I don't even need to wait for confirmation from these guys. I know we all had a cracking time. So we're going to be having a little talk about how the day went, what we enjoyed, potentially maybe some things that we didn't enjoy. Well, I won't say didn't enjoy, some things that we would maybe improve, because I know my first thing that I'd improve is having comfier seating for one. So I'm just going to take a minute to allow these gentlemen to introduce themselves. Steve, do you want to go first, mate? I know we've already spoke to you before, but just a brief overview before we move on to Gary.
So, I'm Steve. I'm from When I Can Hobby, for those who've already heard and listened to the podcast before. I've been on with Baz a couple of times. I went to the Bugman's Belter. It was my first Belter. It was my Belter Virginity and my tournament Virginity as well that was taken last weekend. It was an amazing time, guided and helped through the entire process by Baz, which we'll go into in the pod. But yeah, I'm Steve. I went for my first time with Imperial Nobility.
Cool. I'm Gary. I met the guys at the Bugman Belter at the weekend. We'll get onto it in a minute, but some weird story of me being a stalker to try and find them. I'm sure we'll cover that in a second. But that was my second official tournament, although I had been to the Open Beard last year in October as a spectator, but did get one game in a really random way. It was my second tournament.
Very nice. So, first of all, we will actually immediately touch on the way that we met you, Gary. Do you want to explain it from your perspective first?
The elephant in the room, yeah.
Exactly.
I think the lead up to the Bugmans is quite exciting, especially when you're fairly new to tournaments and going to Warhammer World as well. I'm not into all of the other stuff. I'm only into Blood Bowl, so it isn't as big a deal for me, but it's still exciting. You know you're going to meet all these people and all that sort of stuff. So I searched around the internet for a few bits, and I came across your podcast that you did about we're on our way to Bugman's, and something Steve said really resonated with me in that he was new to Blood Bowl or newish to Blood Bowl, didn't know about the team, was a little bit worried about the people and the atmosphere, and wasn't that worried about if he lost 3 times, but just wanted to make sure that he really enjoyed it. And everything he said really resonated with me for when I was getting ready to go in October, because I just thought, God, everything that he's saying is just exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
So I had to come and find you guys, and I did. I came and find you, Baz, at the end of round 1. You were just packing up on your table, and I said, "Are you Baz?" Now I look back at it now, and I think I'm some sort of weird stalking bloke that has just forced himself upon you.
I mean, initially, I think you said, "Have you just played on this table?" And I said no, because I misheard you, and I thought you said, "Are you playing on this table?" And then I realised what you said. Like, "Oh no, yeah, I did." He went, "Are you Baz?" I was like, "I am indeed. Who are you?"
It felt right at the time. Now, when I look back. Yeah, I promise I didn't drop any retinol in your drink or anything silly like that.
No, I mean the most surprising thing to me, Gary, was that not that I expected to get noticed at the Bugman's Belter at all, not even entered my mind at all. But if I had have thought about it, I was 99.9% sure that it's somebody who's seen my TikTok content. Finally hit like around 4,000 followers. Sorry. So when you said you knew who I was, I think I even said to you, "Have you seen me? How did you hear about it?" And you were like, "Oh no, I just found it on Spotify," because I were convinced you were going to say like, "Oh, I saw your TikTok video about it." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you were a bit surprised. It was like, right, okay, it was through the podcast rather than the TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, it were a lovely surprise because it means that people are searching Blood Bowl on Spotify and my podcast coming up.
Yeah, it wasn't near the top, mate. So don't get carried away.
yeah, but it's there. It's there, and that's all that counts.
Excuse me. Yeah, it was there. It was 3 or 4 from the top.
Fantastic. So I think in fact, let me just double check. Actually, Gary, whereabouts did you finish in the rankings at the end of the day?
Oh, here we go.
No.
It's already started.
Should we just tell everyone where so he can, he can float?
No, I think he wants to save himself till last. So
No.
I out of 76, I got a draw, a loss, and a draw, and I came 59th out of 76.
Right. So the reason I were asking is because Steve, did you? Am I right in thinking you came 68th or something like that?
Oh no, worse. I was 71st out of 76.
All right. The reason I brought it up is because between us, we've got 3 different experiences in the sense that Steve, bless him, for his first ever attempt at any sort of competitive tournament, finishing at bottom and still had a fantastic time. Then we've got Gary, who finished middle of the park and had a fantastic time, and then little old me.
How did you do, Baz?
I finished. I bet you've not. I bet no one's ever told you this. No one's even told you where I came, because I know I've not spoke about it much, but I came second.
Second. Mate, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Seriously, and Steve will confirm this, but I finished my first game and won 3-0. And first of all, I didn't even know that when we submitted as results, the rankings would be immediate. I thought that everyone would have to finish the games and stuff first. I'd not even looked at them, and it weren't until, I don't know if you can remember, Steve, you went, mate, you're fucking second. And I was like, what? And you were like, seriously, look at rankings, you're second. And then, not that I'm super competitive, because I'm genuinely not, but when Steve said that, it were almost like maybe bloody water, a bit like, oh my God, I'm second, I can probably do good here. It really was. It were a massive surprise. I did TikTok videos. I spoke to you personally, Steve, Jason, my friend who I travelled down with personally, and genuinely all along it built up me saying, I haven't played Blood Bowl on tabletop since before Christmas. I'm fully expecting to go, just have a good day and finish. I said I think I'd be happy with somewhere between 30 and 50th. So it truly were really unexpected. I had some really fortunate dice rolls, played some opponents who had unfortunate dice rolls, and that's just the way that the cookie crumbled, and I couldn't be more pleased.
No, well done, mate. Yeah,
it was deserving.
Go on, Steve. Go on, finish what you were saying, mate.
No, it was deserving. You did well to win. It was to me, it was great to be able to experience and see someone and actually get to know someone who finished up in the top, which was quite nice, because normally in that kind of situation or that environment, you don't get to speak to those people, or they are very competitive in that sense. Mm-hmm. But it's a very different environment with Blood Bowl. But no, I'll let you finish, and I'll go through it all myself.
So I think what my point we're trying to make is that we've got 3 people here who finished in. We've literally got a top, a middle, and a bottom in terms of rankings, and I think I can say safely that all 3 of us had an absolutely amazing day, regardless of where we came.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Go on, Steve. What did you want to say, mate?
Oh no. So I mean, if you want, I can start about my day, or how do you want to go about it?
Yeah. We'll start with people. Listen, I've already got my my second place announcement out of the way on podcast. So yeah, we'll talk about you minnows right at the bottom now.
So, I mean, I think a way of going around it is about the build up into the day and going into it. It's obviously we had that podcast before, and I had this just great apprehension going into this tournament, because it was my first ever competitive environment in any of the gaming scenes, and with recent exposure that the gaming scenes are getting through social medias and stuff like this, and the scene of this competitive gameplay or the competitive player, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. I actually literally had doubts that I was going to enjoy it. You obviously said there'd be 3 different types of players that you play against, and I'll be honest, I was most nervous about my first game, because was going to be kind of make or break of who or what I got to play against, and it would have set a tone for the beginning. Well, it would set a tone for the whole tournament. Like, if I ended up with someone who's quite difficult or a newbie basher or anything like this. And when I first sat down and my opponent hadn't turned up, and I got moved to another table, and then I was with that person, I was setting up and we were just about to start going through it all, and I explained who I was. And then I got moved again to another table. But when I got moved to the last one, luckily I got moved to, there's a lovely girl, Amber was her name there, and she actually worked at Warhammer World in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I got placed against her and explained my situation, who I was and everything. And to be honest, I got beat 2-0 in that game, and it was a steep learning curve with the game and the gameplay with it. But it was the best way I think you could ever experience getting into just playing any of the games. It's interesting playing at home. It's interesting playing on a computer. But being in a competitive environment, playing someone you don't know and, having to pick up and learn the rules, it was, it was good. It was interesting. I enjoyed all of it, to the point that even when she scored, I was cheering her along, because I was like, you done me well here, So yeah, I had that. That was my first game. I was very lucky to have her. And then my second game, with that, the way the games work, obviously, if you lose, you get put against someone else who loses. So I was against another chap who'd lost. He had a shambling undead. Alex was his name, I believe it was. Again, another lovely chap. I really wanted to say he sounded like Michael McIntyre the whole time he did, if he ever hears it. I wanted to say it, but I was like, I can't say that. But yeah, he sounded like Michael McIntyre. He was lovely. Again, I lost 2-0 against him, but it was even that he beat me. There was another turn left, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to score anything." And I was like, "Just take my players, get points. Not, just go out there and start knocking them down, start killing them off, and get some points, And he got some extra points in, and he'd done them pretty well. And then my final game went in, and that was the first player I had who was a lot more serious. And I got a bit nervous then. He was quite serious.
Yeah,
but then eased into it. We both had horrendous dice rolls. I scored my first touchdown, and 2 turns from the end, I almost won the game. If it wasn't just for one single agility roll and four squares off, just had to dodge out. I had to just get a 3+ and dodge out, and I got a 2, and that was it. He took the ball and scored down the other end in 2 turns. But yeah, it was all in all, it was good. I learned a lot quickly. I mean, my gameplay went from box and cover to let's start in long bombs down the pitch, and they worked. I caught the ball and I was getting down the other end, and I figured a lot out. So what I'd kind of say is, if you're new into it or anything, it's it's nerve-wracking, but it was really good fun. I mean, that's just one element. I mean, I let Gary explain about how his went, but then there's other stuff, the people that you're there. I was supporting other people and watching other people's game, and it's just good fun. I really enjoyed it. I was beaming the whole time, buzzing. I didn't get to sleep. We finished. Obviously, we had the Super Bowl. Super Bowl, is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Super Bowl. Yeah, and then got back to the hotel. I was meant to be up at 6 o'clock. I still wasn't asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was so excited about losing. So yeah, but yeah, I just had an amazing time. But one thing I will say quickly is the Blood Bowl. The people who played Blood Bowl, all of them were welcoming. All of them were kind. All of them were decent. There was nothing. There was no side-eyeing. There's no underhand comments. There was none of that. It didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt nice to play there and be there. So yeah, that's my takeaway on that.
So would you say, Steve, because I know we spoke about it briefly in previous episodes, but the entire point of this thing is you're doing a YouTube channel where you give yourself 2 months to buy a starter set for a game system, build and paint the miniatures, learn the rules, and then compete in an event. Would you say, with this Bugman's Belter being your first time doing that with a game system, and obviously Blood Bowl being the system you did it with first, do you think now that you've proven to yourself that this sort of trial by fire way of learning a game, sort of like throwing yourself in the deep end and just learning to swim, do you think it's effective for everybody, or do you think you've still got to be the right type of person for that? Because I know that you've said lovely things about how Bugman's Belter were on Sunday there, but there might be players out there who are, maybe more anxious than yourself, or, have deal with other issues around social stuff that it wouldn't work for. Or do you think that the trial by fire is something that even, the more introverted people should force themselves to have a go at if they're comfortable, because, you know, it's worked wonders for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this again, it comes to personal experience, and obviously each person is individual to himself. But I feel like you need to do it. You just need to just bite the bullet. I mean, I think the easiest way of doing it was just buy the ticket. You see the ticket come out, and you think, I'd like to do it. Buy it. Just buy the ticket, set yourself the goal, and go. You know, if you can, go with a mate, or if you can, talk to people before going, or reach out. Follow Baz, chat to him. But, you know, it's anything. Like, if you guys listen to Baz, just literally talk to him. He will talk you through everything, like, you know. But it's just, you go out there and, yeah, I think you need to just go and do it. Like, you know, even if, you know, I'd say, you know, I had no trial games. I didn't have anything else against anyone who'd played the game before I went. Yeah, I lost everything. I set myself 3 goals going there. And my goals were to go there, compete and complete. And that means compete in the event and complete the event, do all 3 games. Like, you know, that was one goal. And the other goal was to score a touchdown. It wasn't, you know, hard and fast, but it was to, yeah, try and score a touchdown if I could score a touchdown. And I've now just completely forgotten my third goal. What was my third goal?
See that you got all caught up in scoring a touchdown, you've completely forgot what the other one was.
No, I said, I'm gonna have to come back to that. I am, but I know I achieved everything that I set out to go. But I set my sights low. My sights were low. Mine was complete it, score a touchdown, and I think my last one was have fun. I'm literally gonna have to find this 1 second. I did write it down, and I know I achieved it. I will find it 1 sec. But yeah, but that was the thing. I set goals that I knew I would achieve, and that was it. Like, you know, so that was the main thing. And I did achieve it. So I'm getting to experience the tournament and find out it was something if I would do again or encourage others to do. That was my third goal.
Like you've literally, for like, you know, pretty much throughout that entire description of your day, you mentioned like 3 or 4 times like telling people to do it. So obviously you definitely achieved that one then, didn't you, mate?
Yeah. Oh no, again, the thing was to find out if it was going to be something I would enjoy doing, and if it would be something I would say for other people to do. And, you know, I'm relatively outgoing, but when I'm in a new circle of people, I can be quite closed. It didn't take long for me to open up, you know, and everyone was good and fun and kind, and everyone got on. And it was just, I would just say, just book the ticket and go. Don't think about it. Just book it. Paint your team. Enjoy painting your team. Get your butterflies. See if you can reach out to someone like Baz and just get there. That's it.
Nice one. So, Gary, do you want to talk us through your day, mate? Talk to us a little bit about how your games went. You don't have to go into mega detail. I'm not asking for a turn-by-turn analysis, as much as I would love that, because obviously I just love all that stuff. But for the sake of the podcast, you want to talk us through, like, you know, how your games went, one through 3.
Yeah, so I went with the intention of just having some fun. So I'm not, and there's all sorts of different players, but I'm definitely I'm doing it for fun, for shits and giggles. So my aim was to not come last, to try to do better than losing all 3 games, and to try and score a touchdown. And another silly little aim and objective I had was you can't choose who's going to sit in front of you as an opponent, and if you're going to have 3 games, you just hope that at least 2 of them are all right. You know, but you can sometimes get an oddity, and the thing with that is, you know, you only have to sit with them for 2 hours, so you know, you can immerse yourself in a bit of Blood Bowl, and if it's somebody you're not getting on with, you just play the game, go through the motions, and you're done.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely
the worst that can happen. So how did I do? I had a game. I had a game against a 17-year-old lad that was a 1-1 draw.
Just really quick, Gary. Which team did you play, mate? It's escaped me.
I played Orcs.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I played Orcs. Took a troll. It was a bit of a weird one, actually. I did 1 goblin. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a bit of a cough. 1 goblin lineman, and the rest orc lineman. but yeah, I took a troll, and I had a real giggle. I basically just blocked up the middle of the park and made it really hard. It was a 2-2 draw. Was my first game with a 17-year-old lad. Really annoyingly, could have won that, but was being far too nice. But we can cover that in a minute if you want. I had the opportunity to stall for about 5 or 6 turns, and there was no way he would have got through it.
Yeah,
I think he was playing elves, I think, and I chose not to. I chose to give him 3 turns to score, and he bloody went and did it. My troll fell over at the last minute.
I am one of the many people who told you after that regardless of him being 17, you were silly to not stall.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll cover it. Second game, I lost 2-0 to a bloody stunty team, Ogres and Griff.
Oh, God. Yeah, you didn't lose to a stunty team, mate. You lost to Griff.
Yeah, and it was Griff. But I think I could have got one, I think, against that team. And then the last game I played against one of the lads who worked behind the bar.
Oh, no,
He was playing vampires, got a 1-1. And again, it was a real cagey affair. Could have gone either way.
Very nice. So, if, as you said, you attended the Full Beard Cup last year as a spectator, but then, funnily enough, ended up getting a game in. So this were your, let's say, it were your first time playing in like a full event at Warhammer World, yeah?
At Warhammer World, yeah. I played a game in November at Excalibur Games in Taunton, and Andy Davo turned up and won it.
All right, I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
which was an interesting one. I was a bit starstruck. I'm sure he thought I was a bit of. There's a bit of a theme going on here, isn't there? Me following people.
So, as somebody who is still relatively new to Blood Bowl. In fact, I still consider myself relatively new to Blood Bowl. Like, I took a 16-year gap from doing any sort of hobbying, and then came back to it just as things started to lift up from COVID lockdowns. So, I'm only in like my 3rd year of playing Blood Bowl, so I'm relatively new still by some people's standards. So, from your perspective, mate, based on time you've been playing, would you echo what Steve says in regards to new players who are maybe a little bit apprehensive about getting that ticket booked and turning up to an event?
Absolutely, go for it. Yeah, just definitely go for it. Obviously, go with a friend, or if you're playing Blood Bowl already and you're new to it, then you must be playing with somebody.
Yeah.
And if your friend is not somebody who's the type that would go to a tournament, then maybe encourage them to go. And both of you go to a local tournament. There's loads of them all around the country. I'm in the southwest, down in Devon, and there is tournaments every month. Many tournaments every single month within 2 hours of me. And I think that we're probably one of the least populated Blood Bowl-y sort of areas. So I think there's Blood Bowl, especially in the Midlands, there's loads, especially in the East Midlands.
Yeah.
But in London, there's absolutely loads. Just go along to a tournament. Generally, you'll be able to find them advertised. We'll go through that in a minute about where people can, people can find these tournaments. We don't have to go to Warhammer World.
No, not at all. What I will say off back of that is, though, I always find that doing something at Warhammer World, regardless of what it is, always elevates it slightly, doesn't it? Like, even if it's something as simple as, like, I use this example with Steve at weekend. Like, how many people will be sat there thinking, right, I need another box of Space Marines. And they say to themselves, I could get that now at 20% off from a local game store, but I'm going to Warhammer World in 2 weeks. I'll pick it up then. And I don't know, it's just sort of like, there's like a prestige and maybe like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of being starstruck for the location because it's obviously the epicenter of the hobby that we all love. So I do think that Warhammer World, although it's not the be-all and end-all of partaking in an event at all, I do truly believe that there's just a little bit it adds on top. Would you guys agree with that, or am I talking shit?
No, I agree with you on that. I do. I think it's
I agree.
It's that kind of thing, though, isn't it? Like you said about you pick up something, you pick up a box of Space Marines, you'd be like, yeah, these are my Warhammer World Space Marines. There's no difference about them. But,
yeah. No, absolutely. That, like, it's how did I? That's how I described it to you, Steve. I said, can you imagine if you played for a Sunday League football team and you played in a tournament, and you win through. You get through first round, you get through the second round, you get all the way to the final, and then instead of playing on a school field on the Sunday, the final against another local team is being played in the local football team's ground, whether that's League One, League Two. It would just immediately elevate it a little bit, wouldn't it, from playing on that school field that's been marked up by somebody with a hangover.
Yeah, no, 100%. It literally, no, it does. You're completely right. It gives you that little bit of, a little touch of a little bit more, a little bit special.
Yeah. It's an experience. It adds to the experience, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's only... I'm getting ready for stick here. So now I'll talk about my 3 games. So if you want to pass it, in the notes will be the timestamp. When you get to the end of Baz talking, it'll be about an hour's time. I'll make sure I put that in description. So I do think it's worth mentioning that the Bugman's Belter used a Swiss format tournament, which means that no matter what level of ability you are, no matter what team you play in, or anything like that, your first game is always random. And then subsequent games, as Steve touched on, you get matched up with somebody who has got a similar, if not exact same record as yourself. So my first game were against this guy. I actually ended up voting as my favourite opponent, although I did ask the guys if I could vote for Gary as my favourite opponent because I'd enjoyed meeting him so much, but they told me I couldn't because I'd not actually played against him. So my first game were against a guy called Chris Wood. I don't know. The only reason I remember his surname is because his name on Toplay was Coach Woody. A really nice guy, super. He just exuded the idea of turn up, I don't care what happens, I'm just here for the day out. Really nice guy. You were playing as Necromantic Horror. And
what were you playing?
I was playing Wood Elves.
Cool.
And he was quite new. He basically, his Blood Bowl experience was he had some friends that played more regularly, and he every now and again would be forced to play, so they had somebody to play against. Which, to be honest with you, is surprising because he wasn't terrible at the game. He was quite good. I ended up winning 3-0, but I really had to work for it. It wasn't simple by any means. I did genuinely have to graft for it, and it was one of those games where your opponent, you can have banter with your opponent. So, at no point did I feel like a dick because I were winning, and or anything like that. And we were having at one point you were like, "Oh, I've got a guy laid down here. Are you going to foul?" I was like, "I'm not a fouler." I went, "Come on, kill my player!" Stuff, a really good rapport with him. Which, as you touched on, Gary, if you've got somebody across the table from you, you can have a little bit of that. It makes life so much easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
So after the, go on,
yeah,
Steve.
he finished. I was just going to say. He finished 42nd. He did in the end. Would he?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Well, right. I know he lost. Did he? I think he lost to me, and then did he draw one and win one? I think
he lost 2 but drew 1. So his
oh right, okay.
Casualties must have been nice.
Yeah, he must have had a lot of casualties. So as I mentioned earlier, it were at this point we finished that first game, and this was about the point that I actually met you, Gary, and then just after that, Steve came back, and after Gary said, "Steve, I want a word with you."
Oh yeah, that scared the hell out of me. I'll be honest with it. I walked past you, and I hear, "I want to have a word with you," and I thought you were talking to Baz. The next thing is like, "Steve," I was like, "What? I want to have a word with you." I was like, "Oh, who are you?" By the way, Gary is a really nice guy, guys. We're not. We're not here, he's not forced us onto this. We're not being held at knife point or something here. He is a
really guys later.
No, he's a really nice guy. There is an analogy that you said, Gary, and it stuck with me. I'll touch base on it later when we go talking about people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, so he's a really nice guy. Sorry.
So it was at this point that Steve, just after we'd finished speaking to Gary, said, "Have you seen the rankings?" And I was like, "I didn't even know they were up." You were like, "Mate, you're fucking second." And I was like, "What?" And it was at this point, the fact that I knew I'd won my first game, so the next person that I came up against is also going to won the first game, and I was sitting second. I'm not ashamed to admit that my mindset did shift a little bit to like, wow, like if I take this just a little bit more serious, I could like have a really good go at this. So the break in between the first and second game, I was just constantly refreshing the fixtures, praying to God that I didn't get like orcs or something like that. And I ended up drawing against a guy playing vampires, which was just as much of a nightmare for myself because they've got quite a few mechanics that I'm just not familiar with. They're a relatively new team, vampires. They only came out in like October last year, somewhere around that time. Yeah. I've got them, I own them. They're still half built and half painted. So I've not been exposed to bloodlust and all that business. It's still totally alien to me. Hypnotic gaze, although there's other areas it does come up in Blood Bowl, I've very rarely encountered it, so I weren't preparing for that. And the guy was a real gent. Every time you were doing something with one of those two mechanics, he was explaining it in detail. And by half-time or just before half-time, I understood it enough to be able to, like, manage it myself, which he probably regrets a little bit now, because otherwise he could have just kept me totally in the dark and maybe beat me. But he was a really nice guy. Again, I ended up scoring 3 touchdowns, and right at the bitter end, I couldn't stop him from scoring, so that one ended 3-1. And by this point, Steve didn't have to tell me where I were at rankings, because the minute that we finished the match, I was like, where am I? And I think for a very brief time, because there were still other people playing the games, I think I was sat at top.
Yeah,
I stayed at top for quite a little bit, and then I'm assuming someone else on the first row of tables finished their games, and I got knocked down to third. Again, would have been more than over the moon with that. Then we had a break for lunch, which were a little bit longer. We had an hour, didn't we? And the results went up for the next round. And honestly, I think we were literally sat still eating, weren't we, Steve? And I were like, I literally dropped my food onto my plate and went, oh my God, I've got fucking dwarves.
Yeah.
Because dwarves, like, they just... I stacked out half my team with a dodge skill. 80% of their team has got the tackle skill, which completely negates my free dodge reroll from the dodge skill. So I was thinking, right, everything was running through my mind about how can I deal with this, blah, blah, blah. And something that I have since learned purely by going back on Warhammer Community, like I was looking for something else, and I saw a pitch side report from last year's Bugman's Belter, and it were an article talking about the team that won it and the coach that were playing them. The guy I played in the third round won the Bugman's Belter last year.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, Brett Armitage. I recognised the name as soon as I read it in article. I'm like, Brett Armitage, that was the guy I played in round 3. And he won it with fucking halflings of all teams.
Wow.
Yeah. But...
some going, that is.
It is some serious going. Right from the get-go, the luck were well and truly on my side against dwarves, because we rolled weather, we rolled a 12. We got the blizzard result, meaning that you needed to roll a 3+ to rush as opposed to the 2+. And anybody who knows anything about dwarves, they rely so heavily on rushing to be able to get down the pitch, because they've all got really crap movement. So he knew quite early on that one of his biggest tools to even out the movement differential between us was to rush, that he weren't going to be able to do, or he could do, but we're going to be far riskier. And there were 2 key points in the game afterwards where he admitted to me, like, if I would have rushed, then I think I would have been able to stop you doing that, but I chose not to because I didn't want to risk it. And ended up winning that one 3-1 as well. And as Steve will probably take great glee in telling you, I sat and waited for the game to the left of me to finish, because at this point I was sat at the top of the table, and if those guys would have drawed, or drew, should I say, I would have gone top. However, the gentleman who ultimately ended up coming first, I think he scored 2 more casualties and an extra touchdown since I'd finished my game. So that sealed me in second place, which, as I said at the beginning, is just worlds away from where I thought I was going to finish. So, yeah, the day could not have been... Well, it was beyond what I thought it were going to be in terms of like the actual games themselves. And genuinely, I can say, hand on heart, no matter how much we joke about me enjoying the fact that I came second, I can truly say, hand on heart, that I could have come dead last, and I really, really would have had such a good day on Sunday.
Yeah. No, it was well done, well run, and everyone there, made it happen, And yeah, no, it was a good day, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did want to raise is I know we keep talking about how everyone were lovely and everyone were polite, which I'm not going to disagree with, 100%. But did you get a sense at all from anybody that they could have potentially not been like polite and nice under different circumstances? Not necessarily people you played against, but
100%.
just people in general.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think there's an undertone to Blood Bowl where people can be a bit over competitive, and I get it. People are in it for to turn up to win as many games as they possibly can and get up as high up that leaderboard.
Yeah.
You only have to look at you and your attitude to it. And I think if you were to be the type of person that in your next 5 tournaments placed first, second, or third, right, I don't think you'd get too big for your boots. Well, I'd hope you wouldn't. I wouldn't. Absolutely, that type of character. But I think there were people there, only a small handful, but there were people there that took it very, very, very seriously.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's great for them. And
if that's the way they want to interface with Blood Bowl and enjoy Blood Bowl, more power to them. As long as they're not ruining anybody else's experience, go mad, do it.
Yeah. But that's not for me. I'm not there to be. For me, it's all about having shits and giggles with the people at the tournament and the person opposite the board.
Yeah. And one of the moments that I had where I could have seen somebody's mask slip maybe a little bit were actually after the tournament. And I don't know if you can remember, Steve, or if it were maybe not a bigger moment, but do you know when we were stood outside the hotel talking when Jason had gone up to his room?
Yeah.
Can you remember when that group of NAF players that were wearing all the World Cup Alicante jerseys walked into the hotel past us?
Yeah.
And there were one gentleman who walked into the door and doubled back on himself. And I'm not saying he were rude or impolite because he weren't, but I just maybe got a vibe that it were meant a little bit less friendly than it actually came out, because he said, first of all, not that I expect this, truly, I don't, but he didn't congratulate me. Yeah. And he just went straight to he just pointed at me and said, "You've got no idea how much I wanted to play you. I wanted to smash them wood elves to bits." And I just said, "Oh, well, maybe next time." And he just walked back in, didn't he, Steve?
Yeah. There was something, he had something in his, whatever his team was, he was like, that would have done it, So I don't know what his team was, but he said something.
Oh, he had, did he have a bomber or something like that?
Yeah, he said something that he had in his team that would have done it, and then it was just, it was that, that was, it's a bit unneeded.
Yeah, fair enough if he'd have come up and said, "Listen, mate, well done. Clearly deserved second place, but I do wish we'd have got to play each other because I think I could have maybe beaten you to it." Fair enough, but he were polite enough. He really were. He didn't say anything wrong, but they were just a little bit under there that I thought to myself, I think maybe you wanted to be a bit of a dickhead there, but you saw sense.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, Baz, is that it was probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning, halfway through the Super Bowl, if not towards the back end of it. He's probably had a skinful. I suspect that the vast majority of people that attend these tournaments aren't people that go out on a Friday and a Saturday night and have a skinful.
Yeah, so, there is that as well.
Having 3 or 4 pints has probably made him. I don't know. I wasn't there, and I can't comment. But for all we know, it was maybe out of character.
Yeah. Like I say, it was polite.
Surprise me that they had NAF t-shirts on, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, right? Because NAF's a great organisation that historically kept Blood Bowl for us.
100%.
The guys that I've seen at tournaments that have NAF t-shirts on tend to be the ones that are more competitive.
Yeah,
and they tend to be the ones where if there's going to be some awkwardness comes out, it's generally coming from one of those. It did at the full beard cup.
You have just taken the words out. I was going to say, if you are ever going to have a bad experience with an opponent at an event like Bugman's Belter, the chances of it being somebody who is a NAF player compared to a non-NAF player are disproportionately higher, 1,000%. And I'm not saying NAF is a bad organisation.
Much, right? That doesn't mean to say all people who wear NAF t-shirts are dicks, right?
No.
Right? Loads of them are not. But there's just the odd one or two that take the competitive nature of things just that little bit too far, and they need to just remember that some people aren't as competitive as them.
Yeah.
And I'm in another completely different hobby, which again is very, very similar in its I suppose people who are a bit more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you, I'm into bonsai, and people
nice.
People who compete in bonsai and have been in it for for decades, they think they know everything, and it's their way or the highway, and actually, everyone's an individual, every tree's an individual, and every back garden that somebody's got is different than the next back garden.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. Is all I'm interested in is meeting people, having a bit of a giggle. I'm gutted I didn't get to socialise with you guys a bit more, because I think that could have gone a bit messy.
Well, actually, you've just touched on, I'm just going to quickly mention this before I ask Steve a quick question. You've just touched on when I filled in the feedback form that they sent us the morning afterwards, everything was a 5-star, strongly agreed to, everything were all positive. And at the end, they kind of not baited you into saying something negative, but sort of I think the phrasing was, what is one thing you would change? Well, I gave them 2. The first one being the seats absolutely destroyed the bones in my ass. And the second one was, I said, and I actually put this in the comment, this one is super nitpicky, and I don't mean for it to take away from how well the day was run. I just wish that there was more time in between games to talk to all the new people that I met.
Yeah.
That's my thing. That's seriously the seats, which, and I don't think there's much they can do about that, because them wooden stools have been there in Warhammer World for as long as I've been going. But that was the only thing. I sat down on my hotel bed, and even though it was like a soft mattress, it felt like I was sat on a washing line. Honestly, and the fact that I wanted more time to speak to people that I'd met. Gary, we met. There were one guy. I don't think I told you this, Steve. There were a younger lad, quite short and skinny, wearing a Green Bay Packers hoodie. Did you see him floating around at all?
Yes, I know. Did talking about it.
Yeah. Well, he on the drive down, I put a TikTok on before I left the house, talking about my expectations and what I was looking forward to and stuff. I got a Discord message from him. He said, "Hi, somebody's just sent me your TikTok saying that you're going to the Bugman Belter. I'm going today alone. I'm not going with anybody that I know. Is there any chance you can just take a quick look at my team sheet and see if I've followed all the team building rules for the tournament?" So I looked at it, everything was fine, gave him the thumbs up, yep, that's all sorted, best of luck today. And then he found me. And I chatted to him a couple of times throughout the day. So that was quite a neat moment as well, that, somebody had seen some content and reached out, and then we, in a couple of hours, I'd met him and things like that. So there were plenty of people that I just wish that, maybe if we had an hour in between games, which would have made us day even longer, I get that. But just to be able to pick everybody's brains about how their experiences are going and things like that.
Yeah. I see that. I see that as it would have been good. It is that thing. You didn't get enough time to talk. You didn't get enough time in between. It does enough, but if you're competitive, there was enough. But socializing is part of the reason we went there, to make friends and get on, and it was people got on, and soon got to chat to someone, 10 minutes in the queue to get a drink. And then it's right, well, I'm going to have to get ready now. And that was it. Well,
that's it. You've just said that we had more than enough time, but you had more than enough time to go to the toilet if you needed it, to step outside for a cigarette or to vape or whatever, to go to the toilet. Most people didn't even have enough time to use the free exhibition ticket. The guy, Rory, that we met at the hotel, he'd never even went to the exhibition because he just didn't have time.
Yeah. No, that's it. Because you choose chat or whatever. I didn't even get to properly look at it because I was too busy doing my team list.
Yeah. So what I just wanted to quickly touch on, just go back to the discussion we just had about NAF. Obviously, I've had quite a bit of experience with people who are registered to NAF. Gary himself is registered to NAF, so he's living proof that not everybody that is a NAF player is a dick. So, Steve, as somebody who are totally new, what observations did you make between people who were quite clearly just normal Blood Bowl players compared to people who were obviously NAF players. And by obviously NAF players, I mean people who, literally had like NAF patches sewn to the bag or were wearing NAF jerseys, things like that. Did you notice anything as somebody who may be blind to? I mean, 2 months ago, mate, you didn't even know what NAF was, did you?
No, I hadn't a clue what NAF was. I hadn't a clue at all. I mean, NAF, to be fair, it's not the best name, is it? Or the best analogy, but yeah. No. All the NAF guys were a bit naff. No, sorry. To be fair, they weren't. But what I found in it, the only vibe I got off it was very much, for lack of a better analogy of it, is kind of like the jocks or the sporty kids at school, like, it was that elite group, like, that were there together. And the thing is, like, it turned out that the second guy I played, he was NAF, and he was with the NAF a lot, like, as his mates, and he was a wonderful player. He was really good and really kind and everything else, like, so again, like you said, it's not the majority. There would have been a minority in it, but it's, I think if I was to put a takeaway on it, for this game to survive, for this game to grow, NAF has done an amazing job of retaining and making that game live, and people, the president, everyone who's involved in it, and the people who partook in it. Obviously, the only thing that I feel and I sense with it all now is that they have a little bit of bad blood, in the sense that, like, Games Workshop's come back and they feel they're a bit elitist to the other people coming in. I didn't get any of it. But when you hear other stories as well, or stuff like you've just said, like, like that chap at the end, like, if he said something like that to me, that would have really put me off. Like, be like, I'm not, I don't want to play because that's the way you are. But actually, I feel like those guys have a duty of care to the game. Yes, Games Workshop's taking it on. Yeah. Yes, Games Workshop's doing that. They've always had the intellectual rights to it. It's their game. NAF have continued it and kept it alive, but generally speaking, they, the IP is Games Workshop, regardless, like,
But I think one way to elaborate on a point you just touched on, the thing of, like, maybe bad blood with NAF players, sort of like Games Workshop have come back and this is like our game now because we've kept it living, which to a certain degree totally justified to feel, because, like, 14 years they kept it alive when Games Workshop weren't interested. Totally get it. But one way I would describe it is, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is prejudice of me to assume something like this, but I get the feeling that when NAF players go to Games Workshop run events that are not NAF events, it's almost as if to say, well, tell you what, we'll turn up to their event and we'll fucking win it. That'll show them.
Yeah, I get you, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't think that's... I don't know if that's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think that's specifically what they're trying to do. I think NAF players, because inherently what NAF does is it records all... So whenever anybody runs a tournament that, let's just say, isn't Games Workshop, and it's run in your local game shop, so a tournament organiser generally these days needs to be sort of NAF approved as a tournament. And the reason that is because they've got a whole bunch of rule sets, but being NAF approved attracts a whole bunch of players, because if it's a NAF tournament, then all you've got to do is register your NAF number, and then all your wins and your losses and your draws all get calculated, and your history as a player is all calculated and accumulated in a data set in one place, in the NAF data set. Right? Now, I reckon when the NAF guys turn up to a GW event, I think you probably are not seeing any of the best NAF guys there. I think what you're seeing is a bunch of guys who've gone off to tournaments, who are into NAF, and are probably coming along to these tournaments almost expecting to win. I think that you coming second and not even being interested in NAF, I don't think everybody, but I reckon there'll be one or two of those NAF guys that will have had their nose put out of joint a little bit, because who the bloody hell are you coming in here doing that, And actually, I think what needs to happen is, I know the NAF has just had a new president elected, and he said a few controversial things. Right? But I think what the NAF needs to do is it needs to really, really carefully get a good grip of what do all the members of NAF want the NAF to be good at, and what do they want them to focus on. And my gut feeling is they just want good data. They want good data tracking, and actually just to communicate with the members. I don't think there's a bit of a sense that they're going to go to war with GW a little bit over some of the rules. And I don't think they are, but I think there's potential for some disagreements. And I think the NAF just needs to really, really just make sure that it caters for those people that want to play competitive, highly competitive Blood Bowl. Those that don't, I don't think it matters.
No, not at all.
And I've only joined the NAF because I needed to be NAF registered to go to the that first tournament that I went to in Taunton. And I never say never. Would I have gone to Alicante if I could have done? God, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, if somebody said to me the stars have aligned, you can get the time off work, you've got the finances to do it, and your missus don't mind you leaving her with kids for 4 days. Like, I would have registered for NAF on the spot just to be able to do it. 100%.
And the NAF Championships sold out instantly almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have got a ticket for that. I think that's a 2-dayer, as well.
Yeah. I think for me, NAF's biggest problem is also it's the best thing about it. And as you just mentioned, it's the tracking data so people can see this is how many wins I've had, this is how many losses I've had, so here's what I need to potentially work on, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. The fact that people can collate all that data about their playing history and see, sort of like literally a track record, it's fantastic. For people who are interested in that, that's amazing. Truly it is. I've got certain feelings about the NAF, but at its heart, its purpose is amazing. I get it and I love it. The one issue that I've got is with certain type of people, that ability to see how good you've been can be a problem, because when it comes to the rankings and stuff, I think that can sometimes be an incentive for people to be even more competitive. If they see, here's
the wrong behaviours.
Exactly. I think it can incentivise poor behaviour for the right type of person. Like, if they see, right, I'm currently, I don't know, let's say 135th in the world or UK. I'm not sure whether you can see it on a country scale or whatever on NAF. Like I say, I'm not a member. But let's just say they see themselves as 132 and they've got a NAF sanctioned tournament coming up in 2 weeks' time. If they care enough about where they are in that ranking, that is going to massively influence not only the way they play, but maybe even their etiquette on the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is,
or even the type of tournament they go to.
Correct. Yeah. Go on, Steve.
I mean, put it this way: if I ended up having one of those types of players, they wouldn't care. They would whitewash me for the easy points. You know what I'm saying? If it was that type of person. Luckily, where we were, we didn't get that. But you're right in saying, I think, their biggest strength can also be their weakness. And I think you and me touched on this with Droog in a different podcast where we were talking about, if competitive gameplay is going to get that way, it's about tiered systems. Like Premiership, Division 1, Division 2, or whatever they call it nowadays. It's being able to put people into those kind of things, do you get me? If it's going to grow and grow,
absolutely.
It needs
I get you.
that kind of way, because again, I go back to that thing that I was just saying. NAF and NAF players have a duty responsibility to bring people into the game, and look after them to ensure the game survives and continues forward. That's the only thing I would say. The guys, everyone who was there at that tournament did their job and everything was good. It was really Warhammer did a fantastic job. I played one NAF player. He was wonderful. Gary's NAF. Everyone, this, that, and the other. I did see it. I never played any of the bigger NAF players that were there or deemed NAF players, because I think first and third and fourth were all NAF boys, weren't they? I think.
Yeah, they were. The guy who won was NAF. The guy who came third definitely was, because he was wearing an Alicante jersey. So I think out of the top 6 players, 5 of them were NAF and 1 of them were me.
I think if you look on tour play, a lot more people were NAF as well. I played a NAF guy second, and he was lovely. He was absolutely lovely. The guy with the ogres and Griff. He gave me a pair of dice.
Oh, nice.
At the beginning of the game, he said, I've got a pair of dice for you. On one condition, you don't play them against me. Because if they're brilliant dice, I don't want to lose to them. which I thought was a really good intro. And he was a lovely bloke, lovely bloke. And I came away from that thinking, I need to buy myself a bag of custom dice so that whenever I go to tournaments, I can give people a couple of D6s. I thought it was a lovely idea.
Yeah, that's nice. That just goes to prove that not everybody who is a NAF player is a dick.
And I don't think the majority of them are, to be fair.
I think 85% of them are probably genuinely decent human beings who you can have a really good game with. And I just think,
if not more.
Exactly, if not more. Probably a lot more, actually. Yeah. It's just that minority that, like, you know, we've all heard horror stories. Like, I've told Steve a story about the guy who runs the South Yorkshire Blood Bowl League on behalf of NAF. Some of the horror stories I've heard of him, like, somebody questioned his ruling once, apparently, and he literally launched, you know, the little boxes you get your dice in, the Blood Bowl dice. He launched that across the room, and it just shattered, and he just stormed out, like, you know, because somebody questioned his ruling. So you do hear them. I think people's, like, preconceived notions about this super competitive side to NAF are totally justified, because, like, for every 10 stories that you hear, 9 might be either total bullshit or fully exaggerated, but, you know, there's no smoke without fire, is there?
And the flip, you know, some non-NAF, you know, people who don't go around with NAF sponsors on, some of those can be dicks as well.
Of course, absolutely.
I think what we're saying is the competitive nature of Blood Bowl is one aspect of the whole Blood Bowl community.
Yeah.
And if you want to get involved in the really, really high level competitive nature of things, be prepared for people to be really competitive. You know, you only have to see it on rugby pitches and football pitches, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
People
being
absolutely. Really, really over competitive and over passionate about stuff.
Yeah.
And things blow over. You know, things boil over a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought that some of us geeks would have got a little bit passionate about a few miniatures on a table, eh?
No, it's right, and it's totally, like, it's crazy. But, you know, I'm really passionate about Blood Bowl. Like, it's if it's not work, my family, my kids, or anything like that, 9 times out of 10, the next thing on the list is Blood Bowl. Whether it's reading about it, watching about it, I love it. But the way that I channel my passion is not the urge to win constantly and every opportunity. Like, you know, like a perfect example is literally Sunday. Steve being there and me, like, you know, not to try and make you feel bad, Steve, but me gearing up my time to make sure that you were ready and helping as much as I could. Not because, like, I felt I had to or because you asked me to. I just love it.
You get enjoyment out of it.
Exactly.
But no, it's
I'm the same. I'm just not good enough to give anybody any advice.
I would have listened to it anyhow. I would have taken it on.
I'll tell you what,
put it this way, second place gave me audio 5, okay, 21st.
I was going to say, on the way there, one of the guys had already set off on the train, and he'd got what had he got? He'd got corn. He'd got a corn team in a box, and he'd done his TV, but he'd done his roster on a thing called BB Roster.
Yeah, I use that.
You guys have seen it, yeah. But he put in a league team rather than an exhibition team. So all of his skills, his corn skills that he'd allocated, were included in his TV count, his team value count. So he would have been fielding a much worse team than he was actually allowed to field. So I said to him, look, I think you've got your roster wrong. You might want to put that. And he was like, oh, bloody hell, I'm on the train now, and I've got no way of getting any more players. And we all just chipped in and we all just talked about. And I said to him, look, I haven't set off yet. Why don't I get one of my Warhammer cases, put all my paints, all my brushes, all my my stuff, and get you a painting thing. And why don't you buy yourself, like, I've forgotten what they're called, the big uns for the corn.
Oh, the bloodthirst or bloodlet or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it was, right? And he went and bought one of those. I just bought a Skitter stab model as well, and apparently corn can take that as well. So I brought that. It was unmade and unpainted. And then we also talked about a few other options that he had as well. So a few people just put some star players together, and he got there in the evening. So he actually got there in the afternoon, bought himself the model in Warhammer World, and primed it all, and just took my box back to the hotel room on the Saturday night and painted it all up.
Oh, nice! That's wholesome as fuck.
But it's just it's just we don't do that because we go, oh, look at me, pat me on the back. We do it because we're a bunch of decent people that just want to help each other out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I get from it, all of this Blood Bowl community. There's 99 times out of 100, people are brilliant. Even like Andy Davo, I said I met him at Taunton. What an absolute gent. What you see is what you get. He is really humble about it all. He's not a dick. He's really, really helpful. I asked him loads of questions as a beginner. Again, I think I might, I actually got a selfie with him at the end, so I think I might have stalked him as well. There's some good people in the community, some really good people. And if you're worried about going to a tournament, just do it. JFDI.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't think about it. Just go. It's look, at the end of it, we talk about all what we've suggested and stuff. I never met anyone like it. We didn't actually meet anyone like that at that tournament. It was just good fun. It was just it. Yeah, I'm beaming. I'm still speaking to a couple of them. I'm happy.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'll go. When's the next tournament then, Steve?
So we've got a few. Well, obviously, we want. Baz has obviously set up the little group there, and we want to go to the beard one, don't we? What's that called?
Nice. The full beard
cup, yeah.
But
probably end of October, that one, I reckon.
But what I also have is because I enjoyed it so much. I've got another thing that I do is we have a hobby club that's on TikTok. We go live a couple of nights a week, painting and chatting and all stuff. And we've got a hobby club meetup coming up in July where we're going up, and I've got 2 tables at Warhammer World. It's going to be Blood Bowl. I want to get as many people in the hobby club into Blood Bowl as well, because I'd like to bring a nice, good group of us down to that one, potentially if it's up in October. I want to get a load of us together for it.
Yeah.
It's a 2-dayer, and I think that would be, where we said there's not enough time to talk and chat, I think that one will have enough time for all of it there,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you play your first game, and unless you're a total introvert, you're going to have met somebody that you might want to meet up for a drink or to go out with a bite to eat with, on the night in between the days. And that, when I saw, because I went and I searched Blood Bowl and Eventbrite, because a lot of the time what you might find is, this is just for future reference, that a lot of the events go up on Eventbrite before they actually go onto the Warhammer World website.
Okay.
Not by a great amount. It might only be by like a week or two. But they actually did that with the Bugman's belt that we've just been to. I saw that on Eventbrite back in like August, but the ticket, the thing on Warhammer World didn't actually go on until the end of September. So it's worth remembering that. So when I was looking to see if there were anything on there, and I saw an old one for the Full Beard Cup from last year, and I saw that it were a 2-day, and I thought, wow. I thought, based on the experience I've just had, like literally the main thing that I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to that, is purely because I thought, there'll be so much more time to get to talk to people and stuff.
And the thing with the 2-dayer as well, because it's a Swiss format, a Wizen format, the way that works is that it's random for the first round, like you said earlier on. But then what you do is you play people that are matched to your ability.
Yeah.
Based on the first game. And then in your third round, you play people matched on your performance in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. So it all sort of evens out. You sort of end up playing, apart from the first round, you end up playing about your level-ish.
Yeah.
Over and you can only get 3 games in a day, otherwise it just becomes a bit bonkers. But some of these 2-day tournaments, they either play 3 games a day, or 4 in the first day, 2 in the second day.
Yeah.
And what happens over 6 games, it really starts to even out, and you really start to find, so by the 3rd game, you're always playing people at your level.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you go with a group of mates and some of you are world champions and some of them are brand new, you'll find your level at game 2 or 3.
Yeah, and I think I said this to you, Steve, as well, that like probably one of the best things about Swiss format is that because the very nature of it is that in the later rounds you're going to be playing at your level. If you are interested in becoming a better player and, increasing where you're coming in those rankings, you get an idea of what your benchmark is, where you're currently sat at. Obviously, there's a lot around luck and for example, that gentleman I played in the last round, the weather near enough decided the game for us because it removed any ability he had to be able to rush without massive risk. But there is a certain amount that you can say, right, this is my level. if you go to 5 tournaments in 6 months and you're almost always coming in between 5th and 10th place, you've got a good idea then to say, right, that's my level. What have I got to do now to get out of that and start climbing up? Do you know what I mean? Like, I like the idea of being able to benchmark your abilities. That was something I said to you before we went as well, wasn't it, Steve?
Just to be able to benchmark where you are, where you stand in it all, is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, that's it. You get a rough idea for, this is my level. And, if you're happy with your level, brilliant. Just keep playing at that level. But, you can get an idea then if you're not happy with that level and you would like to lean to the more competitive side while maintaining being friendly, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what your baseline is, and that's something that I think is really good about the Swiss format. What I just really want to move on to quite quickly is bit of a quick segue. Is the price of the ticket for Bugman's Belt? We paid £35. What are your guys' feelings on that? Do you think that were a fair price based on experience we had? Do you think it was too expensive, or would you have paid more?
I think spot on. I had food, I had gameplay, and for just how it was run, obviously, like I said, I'm always business minded, so I know they wouldn't have made too much money on that day, but they would have done it right with all the staff because I had 2 members of staff there, and the bar was running and everything like that. So it doesn't matter. Regardless, I thought it was a spot on price. I was comfortable paying that for that day. Put it that way.
Yeah,
I was comfortable paying that kind of money for that, and
yeah,
it was good to me.
What about you, Gary?
Yeah, I think it was. I think if you were to look at a bit of a range of what you would be really, really comfortable paying, it wouldn't be, wow, that was nice and cheap and that wasn't too expensive. I think it was probably near the not necessarily the top end, but in the top half of what I would be prepared to pay.
I mean, I've paid a tenner before, like, to enter, and
exactly.
I think that's the most expensive I've ever entered. And I think I said to you when we were sat in Bugman's afterwards watching Super Bowl, Steve, that if they would have put another tenner on top of it, I still wouldn't have been mad.
Yeah.
I think the environment, the professionalism of the refereeing, so the competitions I've been to and people I've spoken to, generally it's volunteers who are Blood Bowl enthusiasts at local game shops that are running these tournaments, and they put a lot of effort in, and often either the game shop offers up some prizes. There's often no lunch included, so £10 or £20 for a 3-game tournament is around about what you pay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get like a bit of a gift, like 2 dice or a token or a free miniature or something like that. Sometimes that's a bit of a sweetener. Sometimes there's like a sandwich lunch, I've heard. And again, that's a bit of a sweetener. I think that the food in Bugman's, and it wasn't actually the food in Bugman's, it was the food in the staff canteen in Warhammer World, wasn't it, that we all had? Absolutely fantastic. I was stuffed. Yeah. The food was just absolutely brilliant. It was fantastic. Really happy with that. Environment was brilliant. Professional referees. People were great. There wasn't a single, and apart from the stools, for the should we say bigger bottomed of the few of them. It was absolutely brilliant. And would I want to pay more? I probably wouldn't. But was I comfortable paying 35? Absolutely. Would I go again? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's also what we've got to take into account as well is usually for myself, if this would have been a normal tournament, I probably would not have got a hotel because I only live I live near Doncaster, in between Doncaster and Wakefield in Yorkshire. So Warhammer World for me is just slightly over an hour, like an hour 5, hour 10. So usually if, that's a tournament that's starting at 9 and finishing early evening, I'd have just drove back. The only reason I got a hotel is because I knew it was finishing late and I knew that I'd probably want to catch at least some of the Super Bowl. I thought, right, I'll book a hotel. And then that spurred my friend Jason, who I travelled with. He was like, oh, well, I'm going, I'll get an hotel as well. We'll stay in the same one. And obviously I knew that Steve, travelling as far as he was, that he was going to stay in a hotel. That is obviously an added cost if that's something you need to do. I mean, obviously yourself as well, Gary, travelling from Devon. But I don't think that what I paid for the hotel were too bad. Obviously, we did discover, Steve, that how far in advance that you book it can have an effect. I think I paid £28, you paid £46 for the same hotel. But I booked it 3 months ago. You booked it the day before, so there's that to take into account. But yeah, I mean, the price of the ticket and the hotel, I think it worked out for me just shy of £60, and like it's you get way more out of it than the value of that, and that's just from meeting people alone. From that, even if there wasn't a tournament on, let's just say us three decided, you know what, there's no tournament on, but we're going to turn up and we're going to just play Blood Bowl all day. We're going to play game after game after game until we're bored to death of it. Like, you would still get that exact same value out of it. You would still get that value because you're meeting up with people who you can't meet up with on a daily basis because distance is a factor. And not only that, you're bound to talk to people out there. It's like, for me, it just cements that the communities in all these different games that we play really are the cement that hold it together. Because 100%. If nobody got on with anybody, nobody would want to play it, and Games Workshop would go out of business.
And I think the Games Workshop one as well. I know we talked about we talked about NAF a little bit earlier on. I would suggest that probably a lot of the more competitive NAF players probably don't bother going to Games Workshop, because one thing we haven't touched on is third-party models.
Yeah.
So, and at Games Workshop events, you can't bring third-party models. You can only bring Games Workshop events. Games Workshop models, sorry. And I reckon a load of NAF players have got probably, at least the 29 teams, and if not duplicates of all of the teams and all their favourite, and they've painted them up, because it's a big part, isn't it? Painting all of the teams. And I reckon loads of them don't bother going. So I think the Games Workshop tournaments are probably a lot more laid back than most of the really high competitive ones. If you think about, the NAF championships, I suspect that would probably be a laugh, but that top 10, tables would probably get a bit salty sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'll be honest with you, not that I had any bad experiences, but even at Warhammer World, I think I said to you afterwards as well, Steve, the gentleman who ended up winning, I had no interaction with him whatsoever, so I'm not trying to call him out for it or anything, but I were playing on table 2 and he were playing his final game on table 1 to the left of me, and he wasn't talking to his opponent at all. Like seriously, unless his opponent asked him a question centered around the game or his team, he literally did not speak to him. I'm not exaggerating, he did not speak to him at all. And I would have found that really difficult, because every single person that I played against, not even played against, every single person that I met, it were like, oh, have you travelled far? How did you get on in your first or second game or whatever? Are you having fun? And then it'd always end with, well, good luck for the rest of your game show. And he weren't giving anything. I personally would have found it quite uncomfortable to play against him or anybody like that. And I think this is probably a good time to maybe touch on the analogy that you gave us, Gary, on the day when you described the different types of people. And I know you're laughing, but it's really accurate, and I don't think it's rude or offensive.
It is for the whole of this hobby, I think, and because I work in data, so you can imagine that there is quite a lot of geeks and nerds in the world of data that I've worked with, and I've worked in some quite big teams where there's been double figure teams, numbers of people, 20 odd people in a team, and you get a nice range of people, and I think in these hobbies probably we're all a little bit on the spectrum, if not a lot.
Yeah,
we're all a bit neurospicy.
And neurospicy, I love it. I'm having that. I'm nicking that one. And I think the thing I said to you, I'd only heard it sort of like a couple of weeks beforehand, but it just again resonated with me, and I don't know why. It just came out at that point. I think there are people who are, let's just say, normal, right? Yeah. I don't mean normal in a good or a bad way, but there are people who are completely socially capable. They can go out, they can go into a room full of people, they can chit-chat to people, they can have a real good social life, and life doesn't treat them badly in any way, shape or form. And they're probably less likely to get into some of these geeky hobbies that we've all got.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
I think that's I think when you generally these sort of hobbies in a lot of people's minds aren't normal, like the normal to us because we're in and around the community, we're surrounded by it. But yeah, I think that's a fair observation to say that a lot of people you would consider to be, and I'm doing air quotations right now, normal. This sort of hobby is not something that's on their radar. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
It absolutely can be as well, because I'd say we are. There's parts of us that are, all of us that is normal. So anybody that is just normal, shall we say, and isn't into a geeky hobby, give it a go. And then the next section, I think, is those geeks, people who have got geeky hobbies or several geeky hobbies. People into Star Trek, people into Star Wars, people into Simpsons or board games or Dungeons and Dragons or just Lego. People that are into geeky things, right? And actually, this time 20 years ago, it wasn't cool to be a geek. These days, it's cool to be a geek. It's actually becoming cool to be a nerd. Yeah. And that leads me on to the third one. Nerds are the people that are geeks of a high order. They're ones that in every Dungeons and Dragons group, you will always have somebody that knows all the rules.
Yeah.
And starts to twitch when somebody isn't following them. You're nerd. Somebody who knows exactly what the proportion of blue 2x2 squares are in the world for Lego, as opposed to the white 2x2. And they know that there's 5 times more, and that they manufacture them in this factory, this factory, this factory. I get it, right? It's just a geek of another step. And I think when I saw you guys, I said, I get the sense that you guys, same as me, have got one foot in normal and one foot in geek.
That is exactly what you said, yeah.
Yeah. And some people, and I'm not taking it away from anybody, some people have different proportions of their characters in each of these things. And I think occasionally you do get some very, very nerdy, not very socially able people sitting across from you on a Blood Bowl game.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? That's fine. They're allowed to be like that. And because I'm an extrovert, I love chatting away to those people. But if I'm not getting it back, then I struggle. I start twitching, but I have to reel it in a little bit,
Yeah.
No, I'm exactly the same as you. I hate it when I'm chatting. I say I hate it. I don't hate it. Everyone is themselves, but when you're chatting away with someone, trying to get, I say banter, but just trying to get a conversation flowing, and you're just like, right, this isn't working. Right, okay, what do we do now? I don't like this.
Yeah, it does. The awkwardness does sort of like stop you in your tracks. But as Gary's just said, people are allowed to interface with the hobby to whatever level they're comfortable. Like, we can't force anybody out of their comfort zone and get them to chat his ear off.
It would be boring if everybody was like Baz, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What, you mean everybody come in second place?
And the other thing, and the other flip of all of this as well, is just because somebody's acting in a particular way, you don't know what's been going on in their life recently. So
true.
So just because we were all riding the high of, wow, we're at Warhammer World and this is a great tournament, just because somebody else isn't, they could have had shit news and they could have had all sorts of stuff going on. So, it's one of those ones where I always say, if you're sitting down at a Blood Bowl table, you've got to speak to that person for 2 hours, have a laugh if you can.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you're only stuck there for 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's... with Blood Bowl, I'm sure there are, but I don't think I've met anybody in the Blood Bowl community who is 2 feet in the nerdy category you described. I feel like because Blood Bowl is inherently silly and it's just chaotic, I think there's a certain aspect to that maybe attracts people with some of a foot or even a full foot in that normal section. I think it's really hard to be, the guy who twitches when people play a rule wrong, because the game itself is inherently silly.
Yeah, it's just the randomness of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I want to touch on really quick is, I know Steve mentioned it very briefly earlier on. Post Bugmans, obviously we've reached out to Gary, got his number. We've got Gary on podcast, and I'm planning on having him back because I think he's past interview, don't you, Steve?
I think he has indeed. He has indeed.
But
to talk about my fees. You know?
But like
he's getting paid.
Don't you come with that, Steve? I know what your wages are like.
And then we've got Rory as well, the guy we met at the hotel, and we've started a really small community on WhatsApps. And I thought it were a new feature, but like some of you guys were talking like it's been there for ages. Like Gary, you were saying your Southwest League or like some of the leagues down in Southwest, they use that anyway, don't they? The WhatsApp communities feature.
Yes, we've got a really, really good tournament organizer who runs our PlayStation leagues, and it's just on PlayStation only at the moment, but we do tabletop and we do a few other little bits as well. So we've got a big tournament coming, but he uses WhatsApp communities and has lots and lots and lots of different channels, I think they're called, for each of the various different things. And the communication works just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it
puts a lot of effort in, though.
It looks like, the best way to describe it, it's like it's Discord, but for people who have got a foot in that normal zone that you mentioned. It's literally a less geeky version of Discord, is what it appears to be anyway. Anyway,
the only downside is you've got to share your mobile number, haven't you?
And if that's something you're conscious of, like, I get that might be a problem for you, but, anybody can have my number. What's worse they're going to do? Ring me when my phone's always on Do Not Disturb anyway. So, we've set up a group on this new WhatsApp community feature called Nuffles Nomads, and the aim behind it is to get people like us, there's currently 3 people on this podcast. I'm from the north of England. We've got Gary way down in the southwest. We've got Steve down. You're from Bournemouth Pool area, aren't you, Steve?
Yeah, down Bournemouth way, so down middle south I am.
Oh, and he even had an I am on the end just to prove it.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 people here from a very broad distance area, and the idea is that we want to get as many people from around the country to go to more Blood Bowl events. I think one of the most exciting things about these events, especially now that we've met people from all over the place, is the idea that you have these connections with people, and it might be over making a podcast episode, it may be through Discord or a TikTok comment section, and I think what's really nice is that it makes it more, you'd look more forward to it, because that person you've only been able to speak to, virtually for, 3 months because you haven't been to the tournament. If we can start organising to say, right, there's this event on this date, who's going, and out of, let's just say we've got 30 people in this community in a couple of months' time or whatever, if 10, 15 people say, oh, I'm up for that, they all meet up, book a hotel room, spend some time together. I really love the idea of that. I think it's fantastic. And not only that, but as you've both touched on, when it comes to going to tournaments, when you're relatively new, it means that people are always going to have the opportunity to buddy up with somebody and maybe allay any of those anxieties of going to something on their own.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If we get a bit of a community going, even if all but one of us isn't going to a tournament, we know somebody who is going to a tournament, so we'll just reach out to Bob. He's going to be there.
Well, that's it.
He's a great chap. Yeah.
And Steve made an absolutely fantastic point. We were talking through voice notes on Discord, I think it was yesterday afternoon, Steve. And Steve said, there's so much you can do with it. You could even get to the point where, let's just say, somebody who wants to go to an event that, for example, 12 other people from community are going to, and unfortunately they can't afford the ticket. We could set it up so that the other 12 players chip in at £3 each and cover the cost of his ticket. Do you know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah. But it's literally you even said you put it that way, even if your team's wrong or you're checking your team roster, you've covered each other. So even you're there, everyone plays and everyone gets there, and we look after each other. Which I think is just huge. It's just, it's just because that's what it's about. And literally the more people, I think it was interesting about the social aspect wasn't as long as we would have wanted it, but I think creating this entire community and then being able to go to more events, half of it, if not 60% of it, is actually just meeting up with people and enjoying that experience is what I find. Which what I'm liking about this. Is what I'm liking about this more and more. Is that bit, man, do something. I lost every game, but I love just being with people and seeing how everyone else done. I celebrated in other people's celebrations, and I think, creating this little community of people going to it, will be awesome.
There's going to be people listening to this as well, though, isn't there, Baz, that have been in Blood Bowl for a lot longer than all of us have. that have those communities already, and they've made all of their mates. I think what we're trying to do is say, look, there's a whole bunch of people that are brand new to Blood Bowl that are getting into it for over the last few years. They're probably or thinking about getting into it. That probably don't have those communities, and let's all get together and have some shits.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about being able to. The main thing I've told Steve this before. Like whenever I'm playing Blood Bowl against somebody who is a newer player, I will always pull my punches, because the way I see it is, if I absolutely batter you, you're not going to want to play again. Player retention is a massive thing for me, and it's literally the Blood Bowl community would just dissipate within a few years if player retention plummeted. So if we can create a space where people feel more comfortable to, one, get into Blood Bowl, and two, start branching out and going to tournaments and things like that, it can only be a good thing for the Blood Bowl community as a whole, which, if we get something out of it by making friends and, getting people to spend time with when we go to these tournaments, fantastic. That's a massive, massive positive. But ultimately, the biggest benefit is that the Blood Bowl community just continues to grow. Because let's face it, we're a lot smaller game than the likes of 40k. And I would love it one day if Blood Bowl became more popular than 40k. I can't see it happening, but I would absolutely love it. And I think that small groups like this are definitely a way to do it. And one thing that you just mentioned, Gary, about there's going to be people there that have already created these communities and they're quite established and things like that. Not to say that it is the case, but, there might be some instances where people have been together for quite a bit, they've become good, firm friends, and through no fault of their own and unintentionally, they may not be as welcoming to new people as they might like to be. Mm-hmm. So if we develop this Knuffles Nomads, as advertise it as literally being for, you're a new player, brilliant. That is literally the fabric of this group. That's why this group exists. And I'd absolutely love it if, in a year's time, let's just say Bugman's Belter next year, if we can all buy a ticket and we get 12 people turn up from Knuffles Nomads, and we're all wearing matching t-shirts and stuff, show them naff guys some real fashion.
some Knuffles Nomads hoodies.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's just, and it's just a really exciting thought. I started an in-person hobby club in my local community, there were nobody playing at all, and now we've just received as first order of t-shirts from Foos. Steve, we just ordered 11 shirts. I want to really open with him. We're getting the shirts of him for a tenner a piece because we've got quite a lot of members, so it's a bit of a bulk order. And I just told him straight away, I said, listen, mate, I'm going to be upfront with you. We're buying them off you for a tenner, but we're selling them to as members for 15 because we're trying to support and sustain as club so that people have got somewhere to play. And they were like, brilliant, fantastic, go ahead, do it.
Yeah, no, he's good.
Fantastic.
We got
I'll have to get the link off you for that.
Yeah, definitely. He loves it, doesn't he? He's making shirts for everybody at the minute.
No, Foos is a guy who he just followed me randomly on TikTok, and now he's making shirts for everyone in the hobby club. It's great, So yeah, you want to get your logo or anything on it, Foos is the man,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's
we've got a big tournament coming up. That we could actually have capacity for 100. We've got 2 rooms, one small room and one big room.
Wow.
And I don't think we'll get 100, but it's part of the Southwest sort of circuit that's being advertised.
Where is it?
Nice.
Where is that?
Yeah, so it's just outside Tiverton, so just north of Exeter.
Okay. Oh,
it's actually in a farm shop, believe it or not, right? Yeah. But this farm shop has got function rooms, and one of the guys who I'm going to that tournament with in Wareham in a couple of weeks' time, he works there.
You're going to? So there's a tournament in Wareham?
Well, this is why I was asking when your next tournament was, because I've got the maps up in front of me now, and that's a nice little segue into me saying to you, we need to touch base, because I've just looked and there's 8 more spaces left at this tournament in Wareham, which isn't very far from you at all.
Well, give me the dates, give me everything. I'll go see if the wife will give me a permission slip, and I'll get on down.
It's the 2nd of March.
2nd of March. I will be having words. I will.
Steve attending 2 Blood Bowl tournaments in one 30-day period. I think he's caught the bug, don't you, Gary?
I don't know. We shall see.
Oh, yeah.
We shall see.
It's more if
I
you're.
don't know what to bring. I really don't know what to bring. I brought orcs at the other one, but I'm toying with Skaven or lizards.
Skaven. Oh, lizard men gave. There were a couple of people I spoke to on Sunday who had played against lizard men, and everybody who took lizard men seemed to give the Saurus blockers block, and they were just like, God, what a fucking nightmare they were to play against.
Brilliant. And they're strong as well, aren't they?
Oh God, yeah, strength 6
fours across the board.
Yeah, that's it. You can take 6 strength 4 players and you give them all fucking block. What a nightmare!
Oh bloody hell!
So I've got to think about that. I've got Games Workshop, the full works of Skaven, but I've got a third party team.
So, Steve, what do we think? Are you going to try and make it to the tournament Gary just mentioned?
I mean, I'm already saying yes. It's just if I get the permission slip. I'm literally like, I'm no sooner in the door. It's like, I'm off again. I should be able to. I mean, it's a 1 day.
It's only a 1 day. It's just it's there and back. Yeah. So where are you? Are you Poole?
I'm Bournemouth. I am. So I'm one along. No, I used to work in Wareham. I've built in Wareham. So yeah, Wareham's no great shakes at all for me. Like,
so it's actually in a place called Bloxworth.
Yeah, I know it. I know that.
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, I will.
Bloxworth Village Club.
Nice. That's exciting. Who's hosting it?
And it's 50. There's a chap called Duffings.
Duffings.
Is his. It is a NAF tournament, but you don't have to be NAF. There's some people there that aren't NAF registered.
Nice.
It's £15. 1 second. It's a 1.15 million roster budget with tiered skills.
Nice.
And it is, and I think you get lunch as well. Sort of a pat lunch, like a buffet lunch.
A sandwich and an apple in the bag. Nice. I think I'm literally going in to be asking if I can go now.
It says here, non-NAF members can sign up on the day for £5.
Oh,
so you could actually join NAF if you wanted to, track your results and all that sort of rubbish for £5 for the year.
Nice. That's not bad going at all, that.
On a complete tangent, because I'm good at those, I joined NAF in October last year. Guess what happened today? I got my dice and my token from NAF.
Mind you, you've done quite well there, because I know people that signed up for NAF and then had to wait literally 2 years for the dice.
Yeah. Well, I've not been playing that long anyway. So I joined in October, and I think I've been playing since the summer. So I haven't even been playing a full year yet. But
so Steve, you might not be aware of that, but when you sign up to NAF, you get a set of NAF dice and a NAF token that can be used as like a ball token instead of the traditional Blood Bowl balls.
Nice. So one thing though, do you not get one of those shaker cups?
Oh my God!
What? It's only taken us an hour and a half to get onto Baz's other pet hate.
It's not a hate. It's just so alien to me. Like I was sat there thinking when I first saw somebody with a dice cup, thinking how many games of Blood Bowl have I played in 3 years, and it's took that many games to see anybody using a dice cup. Like, it's just so alien to me.
It's a thing. Genuinely, it's a thing.
Oh, man. Jesus.
My guys, I went with 7 guys, and I think 2 or 3 of those have dice cups.
Well, what's the purpose?
What do you think it is that people... Yeah, what do you think they like about it compared to just rolling them out your hand, Gary? What is it?
Well, this last tournament, I took a dice tray, like a foldable dice tray that you can do the punch studs, at the corners and make it into a tray. So it's flat and I can carry it. And the reason I brought that for the first time was that when I play dice, when I play Blood Bowl, I tend to be a bit over enthusiastic with the dice, and they go flying, right? So I thought, well, I'm going to try and be polite and try and keep them in one place. But I can see the benefit. I definitely can see the benefit. I think what it gives you is a chance to really randomise your dice. So you don't, if you're that way inclined, where you're thinking, oh, I keep on rolling ones, it's my dice. Well, no, it's random, mate, and it's just probability. I think it gives them the chance to really, really randomly roll a dice, and then to turn them over onto a mat and have them in one place, not going all over the place.
Yeah.
I think it's a Marmite thing. I think some people really, really appreciate being able to do that. I don't give enough shits to worry about it, to be fair.
I mean, I don't dislike it, and I'm not against people using them. It would just genuinely just shock. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen anybody
Never
using
seen it before.
Why are people doing it? I've seen people use them for other games, but never
But people
for
use them
Blood
for other games, so I'm not into any other tabletop games. Apart from Dungeons & Dragons and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, I don't play any other miniature games.
So I play 40k, although my experience and the amount I play it is quite low. I used to play 40k quite not aggressively, as in like play aggressively, but a lot back when I used to play as a teenager. And I can't see anybody using a dice cup for that purely because of the amount of dice that you roll in. They just stand on top of each other in the cups. There's that many.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's other games I've seen, like, games that use less dice and stuff. I've seen dice cups before, and I knew dice cups were a thing. It's just, it were a totally new thing to see them for Blood Bowl. But I get it. If people want to, like you say, truly randomize the dice and rule out any potential poor rolling at the cause of their own risk. I get it. It's it just cuts out like an extra factor, doesn't it? For at least they can say, well, I lost fairly because my dice cup's totally random. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. Maybe somebody else who's listening to the podcast can tell you that's a dice cup user why they roll them.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe I'm guessing.
Yeah. There's a suggestions section underneath episodes. If there's anybody listening who uses a dice cup, why?
Why?
So I think we've pretty much covered everything, gents. Is there anything before we start to sign off? Is there anything that you want to discuss about Bugmans or about the Nuffle Nomads or anything Blood Bowl centric at all you want to cover?
No, about Bugmans and everything, I think I've touched everything, covered everything. It was a great experience. If you're new to it, just book a ticket and go. And I think, if anything, if I do get my permission slip, I'm going to go to this tournament and see what that's about, and I can talk to you about that on another podcast and just see if there is any difference as a new person into all of this. But apart from that, I think it was a well-run event. It was well priced. It was good fun. Yeah, it cost me a bit more because I had to travel and everything like that, but I had fun. I lost every game, but I enjoyed it. I was beaming. So, it was great. I enjoyed it. Yeah, perfect. Good first time.
Anything from you, Gary?
Couldn't agree more. Bugmans was brilliant. Yeah, it was great community, great, really well organised. And I would say anybody who's listening that's thinking about getting into Blood Bowl or has just been playing it locally with mates and wants to try the tournament scene, actually just go and look for a tournament. There's a whole bunch of places you can look for them. There's obviously the NAF, which is thenaf.net. And then I think there's also another place which has them a lot, talkfantasyfootball.org.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that.
They have like an old-fashioned forum-y place where loads of tournaments are on there as well.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of tournaments. The Wareham tournament is on both of those, and there's a whole Southwest tournament series that I'm looking to try and get to as many of those as possible this year. So Yeovil and Paignton and Chippenham and Taunton and Tiverton and Exeter and Bath and Bristol.
Oh, lovely, fantastic. And I mean, I think I don't even need to say anything, guys, because I think we're all aligned in terms of sentiment of this podcast. And it's literally, we had a fantastic time, and we urge anybody who is in, that sort of like limbo stage that is maybe apprehensive about booking, just do it. Get your ticket booked. Make that financial commitment so that you feel like you've got to go. And no matter how nervous you are or anything like that, you just it's nailed on that you're going to have a good time in it.
Yeah,
I think so.
No,
yeah.
Oh,
definitely. So, on that note, then, I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you guys for giving up your time this evening to come on podcast. I've had a wonderful time chatting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
And Gary, you have definitely passed the interview, mate. I would love to have you on for more future episodes if you're willing.
Well, I'd be more than willing. My only caveat is that I do have a bit of a potty mouth, so...
that's fine. I mark my podcast episodes as not appropriate for younger people, so you're good, mate. You can say...
I've tried my best to be as well-behaved as possible.
No, you can say fuck all you want. So, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and keep your eye out for future episodes. I've been discussing with Gary and Steve some other topics to discuss. So, when we're available, we'll get some more recorded. And, yeah, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.